Welcome back to the Raising Our Resilience parent group. If you haven't yet joined, make sure you do, because this is our segment called Ask Me Anything. And this is your chance as a parent to borrow my expertise. I've worked with hundreds of families over the last 2 decades, supporting them in raising the resilience of their family. Things like really kind and clever ways to motivate your kids without having to use rewards and punishments. Things like how to navigate those big emotions like meltdowns, tantrums, and power struggles in ways that are empowering instead of disempowering. I'm here, Vanessa Callaghan, your lead parent empowerment coach of Raising Our Resilience, to support you today. And what I'm hoping to do is address the questions that have been coming in as dozens of parents have been joining our Raising Our Resilience parent group, which if you're not a part of yet, I highly, highly recommend you go ahead and find the link in this post and click it and request to join. All you need to do is let me know what you're hoping to learn and a little bit about your family and yourself, and we can get you folded into a community of supportive parents. Parents like Stephanie, who was just celebrating having set up her Calm Down Corner, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment here. And then parents who are looking for support, parents like we've got folks who are looking for support with things like how to respectfully navigate and resolve disagreements with your 10-year-old. One of them's asking, another parent wants to know how to help her 6-year-old daughter use her voice and really talk to her when she's not, she's been like non-verbally prompting for her mother. So she's been using grunts and things like that instead of actually talking to her. How do you help a 6-year-old transition back into using their words especially when their emotions run high? How to help a 10-year-old learn to be self-motivated? These are all questions we're answering today, so stay with me. But to watch the whole thing, you're going to want to join the group. Don't forget, okay? I'll also be sharing a link with you of how to kind of keep your cool, kind of keep that lid on during those most challenging moments. And if you haven't yet grabbed this guide, make sure you do. It has my 6 favorite ways to keep your lid on or get it back on and cool down hot emotions. There are techniques that you can use, and there are also strategies that you can share with your children. So it's whole family strategies. That's what we're all about. All right, so to dive right in, I've got a question here about how to help my child become more self-motivated. So there's 2 parts to this, right? There's motivation and there's self-motivation. And the difference is profound. It's not something that we can just sort of breeze through, okay? So I want to make sure I give you like my top three or 4 tips here. Okay, you ready for them? So if you have a pen and paper, you might want to write these down. So the first thing that we often want to do when we're trying to help kids be motivated is we tend to start to right away problem solve with them, right? We want to give them other ways of approaching the task. We want to sort of suggest that they think about it another way. We want to give them advice. We want to fix the problem. Yeah. And those are great ideas. Let's do that. But let's also make sure that we've taken the time to connect with them first. And so my tried and true 3 steps to really connect with your child before jumping into problem solving mode, which by the way, is a really common thing that I encourage a lot of parents to break the habit of, okay? So if you're a skip ahead to solve the problem, like, well, why don't you just do this? Or have you tried this? Why, do it this way, right? Or you don't need to think about it like that. Think about it this way. Those are all solution-oriented suggestions, which are great, again. But what you want to do first, number 1, write this down, is get into your child's world. In other words, if you're not joining them where they are, it's going to be really hard to convince a child to take in your advice and your tool and strategy. They need to know that not only do you see them, but you can relate to them and what they're up against. So here's a great example. Child has a bunch of homework assignments that they need to manage on Google Classroom. And they're saying, I don't want to do it. I don't feel very motivated, or they're just like, maybe they're throwing a tantrum about it. It's just not going well. They're not self-motivated, that's for sure. Maybe they get stuck and they go procrastinate. There's a lot of ways this can show up. It's lack of motivation. Hi, Nabyal. Hi, Tahira. Nice to see you both. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I also want to say hello to folks on Facebook. You're going to want to let me know where you're tuning in from and the ages of your kids. Also, if you have a question, write it in so I can get to it today. Okay. Good. Okay. Hi, welcome. I've got four folks here on Facebook listening in. So when you're going to want to get into the child's world, okay, and when you get into the child's world, you're going to want to pick something that you're observing that you can reflect back to them so they can see and know that you really are like taking a moment to get side by side with them, even like point your eyes at what they're looking at too, and show some interest. And the best way to do that, again, is to share something you observe, like, oh, I see you've logged in and you're checking your homework assignment, or, oh, I see that you've opened up your Minecraft, your Roblox, your whatever it is, and it looks like you're working on a campaign, rather than like, what are you doing? Why do you have that open? I see this is happening, and just sort of pause and see if they can acknowledge that you are there, giving attention to it, side by side, not jumping to any fix it or solution, but just there. Get into their world a little bit. See if there's something you can acknowledge about why it's got their attention, right? Whether it's like oh wow, this part looks interesting. Are you using a new tool? Are you playing with a friend? Is that a new piece of armor? Like whatever the game is or the thing is that their attention is on, that's either making it difficult for them to transition. Maybe it's something that they're distracting themselves with. Like just join them for a moment. And really, friends, like I'm telling you, I've had to do this with a classroom full of 36 children. If I can do it, sprinkling this around across 36 kids for 6 hours a day, you can absolutely do it for your 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 kids for like 10 to 30 seconds. Okay, you really can. You can join them. And I even challenge you to do it for a whole minute. It'll seem so slow, but you'll be so glad you did. Okay. So what's number one? Write it in the chat so I know you're listening. I know that you're getting it. It's get into my child's world. Get into their world, okay? Even for just a minute, get into their world. Get side by side with them, okay? All right, number one for motivation. I know you're like, that's not motivation, Vanessa, but trust me, if you connect before you correct, if you connect before you fix, if you connect before you advise, it's gonna go so much further, okay? Number two is to show some understanding. Oh, this looks so much more interesting than your math assignment. I can totally see why you're over here, honey, instead of on your math assignment. Like that makes so much sense to me, right? Just share something to show some understanding. Oh no, yeah, I would be frustrated too, honey. It's not easy to be so far away from your friends, and your friends are over here chatting on this app. Like, of course you want to be there too. Like that makes so much sense to me. Let them know that you're not just making them wrong, right? Like for not being motivated. There's something there that makes sense to you. So what's number one? Nobody's typed it yet. Bonus points for someone who does. Nabyal, or I'm sorry, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Let me know if I'm not. I apologize. Tahira, the 3 or 4 people on Facebook. What was the first one? Get into my child's world. Like really, you can go right into the comments. I'll do the first one and you can do it too. Write it down. Get into my child's world. That's the first one. You can do it into, yeah, good, Angela. Nice. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead and put it right in the chat also on Zoom here, okay? Okay. Number 2 is show understanding, okay? Show understanding. Let them know that there's something that makes sense, okay? Put that in the chat too if you haven't yet. This is good for you, for your learning, so you can integrate this. It's something you're not just gonna hear and just have it fly through your head, okay? So show some understanding. What is it? Something that makes sense about what they're going through, okay? Like I modeled. Like, of course you're over here doing this. That makes so much sense. That's so interesting. The other one is to, number 3, wait for it, is to share your true perception or your true feeling, okay? They would much rather have you be honest with them than tell them what to do. I'll say it again. They'd much rather you be honest with them and actually connect like, oh, you're a person that I can share my true feelings and perceptions with than just tell them what to do, like a manager, right? Someone trying to top down sort of guide them, but maybe in a bossy way, or maybe even a disruptive way, right? They're in the middle of something. So something like, man, I feel so torn right now because of course I want to give you more more time to play your game and connect with your friends or chat with whoever, or, of course I want to give you more time with that. But I really, as your parent, like, it's part of my job to help you get back into your schoolwork so you can finish it on time. Notice how it just sounds different than like, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing your schoolwork? Come on, turn that off, right? It's just, you can hear yourself in my voice, I'm sure, because I've done it 100 times, not only with my students for 15 years, but also my stepchildren, right? For the years I had them. So, man, okay. Yeah. So we're going to get into their world. We're going to show understanding. We're going to show our real feelings and perceptions. And it could be as simple as like, well, what I see is that there's an hour left of homework time. And what I know is that if you can finish all this by 4:30, then we can start we can restart this game. So then notice it was after getting into the child's world, showing understanding, sharing some true feelings, and maybe perception, right? Something you perceive that maybe they don't. Or like, I've seen you do this before. I think it's not going to be as bad as you think, whatever it is. Then a solution. And I would say, ask first, what do you think? Remember this. What do you think could help you feel more motivated to do this? Do you think would you like some help? And there's like 5 strategies that I roll through usually, and I'll pick one that I think is the best first, like competence, like how can I fill a gap here, right? Hey, Jennifer, good to have you here. I've missed you on our Mondays. I'm glad you're back for this one. So it could be something like competence, like, oh, I noticed last time what helped is that I just helped you get going. And then once you got going, it went much more smoothly, right? I remember when I sat with you for the first 3 problems, that really helped you feel like more confident about finishing the rest. How about if we try that again today? Yeah. So things like that, where you're kind of leading into solutions that are kind of working together, thinking together, asking them if they can remember past solutions that worked well. And then if it seems like there's a big emotion going on, this is where we're going to roll into addressing big emotions. You might want to put a pause on it. And that's where you're sharing your true feeling and your perception, going like, sweetheart, it just seems like there's something else going on here. Let's take care of you first. Okay. Are you hungry? Are you really angry or upset about something? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Right? And we can use that HALT acronym to kind of roll through it. HALT, HALT. I'll put it in the chat for you. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? See if you can address the true need underneath this behavior of resisting doing something, because most of the time it's not actually a lack of motivation in the purest sense. There's something else in play. Yeah, like a precondition, like hunger, anger, loneliness, or tiredness, or feeling disconnected to you, and they're just pushing back because they feel bossed around, and that we address that with the first 3. And then when you're wanting to get to a place where you're going to, I'm going to hop to the question of how do I respectfully navigate and resolve disagreements with my 10-year-old. And I think, let me see who's that was, because I think it was, let me double check here. Yeah. The reason why is because then you might end up finding yourself in a disagreement. Oh, Angela, this is yours. I'm so glad you're here. Yes. Okay. So yeah, Angela, how do you navigate a disagreement? Well, have you heard, I'm going to ask you, Angela, and I want you to actually tell me what you think. Have you heard any suggestions so far in what I just laid out about getting in their world, showing understanding, showing your true feelings or perceptions, addressing hunger, anger, loneliness, and tiredness? Do any of those, if you were to do that first, do you think that you might even reduce the number of disagreements that you're having in the first place? Could that be a proactive way to get ahead of these disagreements? Let me know what you think. Your honest answer. Okay. Okay, good. Angela says, absolutely, so helpful so far. Okay, good. Right. All right. So we've done our we've done our Boy Scout try, our Girl Scout try. We've put our good foot forward, our best foot forward. You know, we've tried these things. Let's pretend. And Angela and all of you know this happens anyway. You end up in an argument anyway. You end up in a disagreement anyway. Yeah. If that's you, let me know. Yeah. Like let Angela know that you've been there too. Just say, I hear you, Angela. Something like that in the chat or in the comments. Maybe give her a little love, a little like on one of her comments. Yeah, because we've all been there. And it's not always about quick tips and tricks, right? It's not like, oh, if I just do this, then it's going to work every time. Oftentimes there's a dynamic that's been going on. I'm actually working with my immersion folks this month in our year-long program about how to repair mistakes and like how to repair after conflicts, because if there are too many injuries that have been unaddressed, it can lead to sort of this dynamic where it just keeps carrying over. And then now your relationship feels like it's strained. How many of you have been there? I have. There was seasons with both of my stepkids and definitely with some of my students where it just felt like, wow, we're really not connecting. So if this is going on, one thing I want to encourage you to consider is taking a step back and like looking at the whole picture with me, okay? Because families are dynamic. You know it's true. I know it's true. We all know. And sometimes it's like, you know, really unique what's going on. Maybe there's a co-parent or another caregiver who's giving them a different kind of parenting style and message, which isn't necessarily bad, but it's confusing for the kids. So they might disagree with you and then run to the other parent and get the answer they want and play you guys against each other. Maybe there's something about like the limits that's just not that clear. And so you're having to argue about the limits and the expectations and the rules as you go, because you haven't had a chance to really establish that as a family, which tons of families have been through. Don't get me wrong, like that I help almost every single client with setting some limits more clearly and getting the kids more on board to like avoid the disagreements that way. So I'll put in the chat here my process, my step-by-step process for helping you identify what could be the highest priority for getting to the bottom of what's causing these issues in the first place, or these concerns, okay? So I really highly recommend you take me up on taking the quiz, and then you'll have an opportunity to also apply for a one-on-one session with me where we'll go over your quiz results and we'll get a really clear sense of what is needed next. Jennifer's done this with me. A lot of other folks who are in the group have done this with me and have had breakthroughs. I just finished a couple of sessions with a parent who said, I thought I was getting tips and tricks, and now I'm on like a whole new journey of becoming a parent leader in my family and repairing my relationship with my kid. I'm so excited. And her daughter's 10, so it's never too late, okay? So yeah, so take me up on that. I want to make sure you know about it. I'll be putting it in the comments on the business page as well. Okay, but back to your situation. So now you're in a disagreement with your 10-year-old. It's happening. So my quick suggestions here for your first step, Angela, and all of you who are interested in this one, are not too far off what I just shared. I mean, getting into their world to be able to relate to their perspective enough. I'm not saying agree with it. And definitely you don't need to agree with their behavior if they stepped out of line, right? But maybe looking to see like, do I really understand where they're coming from here? And if not, can I model that to my child, right? So giving each of you a chance to speak respectfully while the other person listens is something that a lot of families haven't established yet. And when you do, it makes all the difference, because then real communication is possible. So practicing like taking turns listening and speaking through communication games. A lot of you know about like, let's do like a quick whip around of like, what's our favorite food? What's our favorite this? What's our favorite that? That's a quick game where everyone takes a turn. If your kids are younger, you can even do the like Simon Says listening kinds of games, and everyone takes a turn being Simon. There are all kinds of ways to build in practice with listening and speaking. But so what you're wanting to do, and your goal is to establish that when we have a conflict to solve, we are going to give each other the time to think and actually share what it is that's on their mind, and to practice the listening part. Okay, so getting that established is really helpful with conflict resolution. The other thing that's really helpful is for everybody to learn more about how to express what they need and what the impact was on them if they're in a disagreement. Because oftentimes when there's a disagreement or a conflict, the reason it's not just communication and it's now classified as a disagreement or a conflict is because something isn't lining up into sort of a common shared understanding, right? And so what you're going to want to do is make sure that each person feels empowered to communicate like what their perspective is, and particularly what the impact of the other person has been on them. So here's an example. And I mean, Angela, if you're still here, I'd love to know what exactly you're arguing about, because I can even model it. Like what kinds of things do you guys get hung up on? So you might say something like, I I feel discouraged when I need to remind you 3 times to do your chore, whatever it is. Let's say to clear the table, because I know that you know this is your job, and I know that you know that I care a lot about this, and it's important to me and to the family, and that it's a respectful thing to do. And so it leaves me feeling confused and discouraged. Sometimes just letting the problem stay like that instead of immediately going into, so you need to listen. And if you don't listen, then this, then that. Oh, Angela, I got it. Yeah, nice. Little proud coaching moment. So it's so instead of going into, and then it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way, you get a chance, especially with a 10-year-old, for them to kind of go, yeah, okay, I can see why that's confusing or discouraging. Yeah, got it, right. You know, like giving them a little space to show up in the way you'd hope they would before launching into making them wrong and making them feel sorry for it and making them, sort of, agree or else, right? Because we can go there. We can kind of get very powerful and power over about it. So just opening up with, Angela, nice. Opening up with, I'm curious how you're feeling. Here's how I'm feeling. Here's, I feel discouraged, like I said. How about you? Like, how are you feeling? And what am I doing to contribute to this problem? And why does it bother you? Like, actually opening up that dialogue is one of the healthiest things you can do. And it's not too young. You can't do it too young. Like, you can do it at 3, 4, 5. I've done it with toddlers. Yeah. Oh, and that makes you feel sad. Yeah, I feel sad too. I feel sad when we fight, when we get mad at each other, then I feel sad. You can do that with a 2 or 3-year-old, all the way up to the teens. I've got a 22 and a 24-year-old, and we're still using some of this language because it works, man. So an I statement is the other tool I want to give you. Okay. So the taking turns listening and speaking games. So you can get used to that. You can even have an object you pass back and forth for the younger kids while they're still training. Sometimes older kids need that too, and that's okay. But the I statement, which I like to call an impact statement, I feel blank when you blank because, or when this happens, right? It doesn't always be about you, because blank. And if you can, use this to start the conversation and then turn it over and say something like, and I'm curious how you're feeling. It's just a great opener, and it can help get to the core of the issue, because otherwise what ends up happening is that people just point at the behavior and the little things on top, and they're not actually speaking their needs and tuning into how they're feeling about this. The next thing that can happen is just once you share an I statement, you might be able to notice you're having a strong emotion and address it. Yeah, address that, because perhaps it's not the best time to have this conversation, right? Maybe this is you know what, we need to cool down. I know quite a few talented marriage and family therapists who help couples. And one of the things they say is like, man, when emotions run high, you also need a 20-minute break from the conversation where you literally shouldn't even be in the same space. So because if you get flooded, which is another name for lid flipping, it can take 20 minutes to put that lid back on. And the last thing you want to do is go and like rehearse what you're going to say. Like, you actually need to take a break from it. And then when you feel calm, you can maybe think of a constructive I statement to share, or try to think of how you might show some understanding to the other person. So these are some steps, Angela, and I will tell all of you, the most important skills is to be able to model the behavior you want. So I want you to write that down, model the behavior you want. It's something that is one of the high goals that you seek, right? It's one of the highest goals that we set in my parent immersion for the year, is like by the end of the year with me, they want to be able to model the behavior that they seek. And I'm just noticing, for those of you on the Zoom webinar, that I haven't been sharing it in the right place. I'm just going backwards. These are all the things that I've shared. Okay, I hope to see some of your comments in the chat too. All right, so that's what I've covered for yours, Angela, but I'll keep going. I'm sure there's other tidbits in here that will be enriching for you as well. All right, so here it is, model the behavior you seek. Yes, that's the big one. That is the big one. And it's not a short journey, friends. This is not a short journey. You start small and you build from there, but you get there, and it can take 1, 2, or 3 years to get to that place. But guess what you get on the other end of it? Can anybody guess what it is? What do you get on the other end of all that and all that effort? I'm gonna leave that to you for a moment. Tell me in the comments or the chat. And if you're listening on the Raising Our Resilience main page and you haven't yet joined the group, you're going to need to hop over into the group to watch the rest of the training. Jennifer, I think you need to shift over. We'll see you there, okay? All right. Yeah, so I'm giving you a moment to say, what do you get on the other end of that, of having learned how to model the behavior that you're seeking from your kids? What do you think you get to have? It's something that lasts for the rest of your life, ideally. Okay, I'm gonna keep letting you guys think, letting folks think about it. I'll reveal it in a few minutes. Keep thinking, keep noticing, okay? Because I have a new question here that I want to address while you're thinking about that answer. So this is for Lee, I believe. Yeah, this is Lee's. Lee, if you're here, I think you were tuning in a second ago. To encourage your 6-year-old to use her voice and talk to you when she's non-verbally prompting for her mother. Lee, yes, okay. So this is when, your child is in a state where she's grunting and saying she wants her mom instead of you. And maybe her mom's not available, and you're hoping that she can talk to you and get support from you. Is that right, Lee? I'm guessing. Yeah. So yeah, let me know if I'm off and there's something else you need, okay, in the comments. But I believe that's what you're looking for. So first of all, when a child tends to start using like nonverbal communication, it's because they're either in an emotional state where their different parts of their brain aren't necessarily working in tandem, so they're not necessarily integrated. So that could mean a lid flip moment, right? So in other words, the kind of thinking part of the brain that accesses memories and language and critical thinking, critical problem solving, has flipped, which means it's now no longer firing smoothly with the brainstem and the limbic system, which are kind of the different parts of the brain that need to work together to integrate to be able to put behavior, feelings, and thoughts all together. Yeah. So my guess is she's not choosing to grunt, she's just grunting. It's happening through her experience emotionally at that time. And so what you end up having to do is sort of address her emotional needs. And one of the key ways to do that when kids are nonverbal, either because they're young or because they're kind of regressing in a way at that moment. No judgment, but it's true. They're kind of losing their language. Is to kind of be what I would call like a toddler interpreter or like a nonverbal interpreter, where you're saying like, I hear you grunting, back to observing, getting in their world. I hear you grunting. I wonder if that means you're frustrated right now and you'd like something different, and then maybe a validating statement, like we said, show understanding. That makes sense because I won't give you your toy back and you really want it. And they'll still grunting. And you're like, yeah, I can tell you're still upset. We can bring the toy back when you show you're ready. Isn't maybe a possibility when you show you're ready. But let's go take a break first. If it's anger that's happening with grunting, usually grunting is anger. It's this sort of guttural like feeling. and giving them something to do with their anger, either to express it another way. You can even encourage the grunting a little bit and kind of grr back and like, oh, I know this is so upsetting, you know, and just to show them you're with them and you get it. Other times it's really about giving some space and letting them sort out how to soothe themselves, and just letting them know that you're ready when they're ready. Like, I'm so ready to talk, you know, to help you with this, and to talk to you about this when you're ready to. Oh, I see you're still grunting. Okay, not quite ready. Got it. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. You know, and do that sort of dance of like checking in and oh, not ready. Got it. Here's what you need to do to show me you're ready. Still not ready? Okay, got it. Come back. You know, so kind of playing with that, Lee. I know there's more here to unpack that we should go deeper on. I highly recommend you take the quiz, Lee. That's a link in the comments, so we can see if we can do a 20-minute session together, because I'd really like to help you out even more. Asking for her mom instead of you is, first of all, it's hard not to take it personally. I feel for you. Yeah. Yeah. Being preferred over is really rough, especially when you're the one who's available. You're right there. You're giving your full attention. And oftentimes it's something that, you know, you can just insist. Okay, greatly. Yeah. Make sure you grab that quiz link. Let me know if you can't find it. It should be up in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, so having the option of, you know, kind of standing your ground a little bit, of just saying, you know, if there is a boundary that you're trying to hold, especially for your daughter's mom's sake, right? Saying, mommy's not available. She let me know that she can't answer any questions right now. Like, really restating with clarity that it's not happening in a loving way. That's just like, this is what is. Yeah, can be really helpful with the whole preferring mom. The other thing is you can go over to her mom together and ask the question together. So it's not about splitting and dividing and conquering you two, but it's almost like, well, let's go ask her. Let's go find out. I'll go with you. And if she's like, no, just like, yep, I'm coming, you know, because I get to talk to your mom too. And kind of move into this direction of like, look, we're on the same team. See, like, I can come over here and we can have this conversation. I used to do this all the time with my co-teachers when the kids would try to split us up too. And like, oh, you think teacher Allie will say something different? Well, let's go find out. Oh, you think teacher Anna will say something, has a different answer, or will say yes? Let's go ask her together, you know, let's go find out. Like, and just kind of modeling that curiosity. And maybe you and her mom can have a little wink of like, so she's already asked me and here's what I've said. And we're just double checking, you know, maybe there's a word like double check. We're just double checking that that's what you would say too, you know, that sort of thing. Now, if it's asking for her for comfort and other things besides getting something, Lee, let's talk more, okay? Because there's a lot to unpack there. I'm glad you're going to take me up on that opportunity to chat more. Yeah, because I want to support you. Let's see, I've got a new one coming in from Sarah, who's here live. She says she's noticing that her son doesn't seem to appreciate things or events, especially after a day of school or a play date or his birthday. He'll say it was terrible. Sarah, we've been working on this one. I know he can be really focused on the negative aspects. Yeah, and he can just really get stuck on the thing that colors his entire experience. What's a good way to discuss and try to separate the bad moment from the entire experience? Good question. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you're welcome, Lee. So Sarah, first I would say there are a lot of ways that work slowly, small steps that work slowly over time to help kids build a grateful perspective. That was one of the key pieces of my research, and I'd be happy to even share my lesson plans with you, Sarah, on that. And for those of you who are not a client, I'll give it to Sarah, but those of you who are not a client, you know, the quick thing I could share is that kids don't actually realize that they have the power to put their attention on other places until you explain it to them. Even adults don't. How many of you have that coworker who's always like, I'm focusing on the negative, and you're like, man, if they could just know that they could, you know, take a moment to take stock, like kind of pull back and see the whole picture, it would be so helpful to all of us. So start really giving kids the message of like, you can actually choose what you focus on. You actually can, and you can put on, like, we have this character in the curriculum that I created through the Greater Good Science Center at Cal, their Youth Gratitude Project. And we did a whole study, and we found that kids are much more resilient and have a much more positive outlook and all these things, like for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. But anyway, so you can do is you can actually pretend to put on these like goodness glasses, like this little character does in the stories in the curriculum, and actually go find good things. And it's a way of sort of training the brain to stop with a negativity bias. There's a negativity bias that we tend to have hardwired that keeps us safe. Like, I ate a blueberry and it got me really sick. So now anything that's blue, I'm just like not into it. Like it's a negative association, right? We can build that up over and over and over and over again. Evolutionarily, it kept us alive. And we can actually sort of rewire our brains towards a grateful affect and a grateful perspective. So building in daily practices of, what were your highlights of the day and the lowlights, because Sarah, your little one and all of your little ones who like to focus on negative things need a way to unpack the negative part. But one tradition we have in our household is sharing a highlight and a low light. And that gives them the opportunity to share that low light, something that they didn't like, that they wish had gone better differently. But then also pick a highlight and also pick one thing that went well today. And maybe that's the baby step your child needs, Sarah, is to just at least pick one of each. Now, when you pick him up from the thing that he had just been doing and he has a negative report, I would maybe focus on his emotional needs there first and just take good care of him in terms of like, well, what would you like to do to feel better? And maybe it's a snack. Maybe, we know food is a big deal for your little one. Maybe it's the HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Maybe it's he needs you to feel it with him. So he knows that you're going to look after him and really hear him out before you make a suggestion. So there's a lot there. Sarah, I hope a couple of those were helpful. Maybe let me know in the chat if you're listening, if anything stood out to you, and I can track that for our next session. Back to the list of folks who, are joining our group here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. How do I get on the same page as my partner when it comes to parenting? Ooh, such a good one. This is Kelly's. Kelly, I love this question. It's so apt. How many of you would all like to have more of that? I mean, you're not alone. Not alone, Kelly. I feel you. So part of what's happening here is that it's challenging to even break into the conversation of parenting without some frameworks or some guidance around how do we even start this without making each other wrong for being different. Yeah. And what I can share with you is what I love sharing with parents, and whenever I can in my workshops, my sessions, and we can do this one-on-one as well. Just make sure you take the quiz so you can get that session, okay? Don't forget. Is that parenting tends to go on these sort of spectrums of high support and low support, high demand and low demand. And even just having this language has given folks a breakthrough of like, oh, I'm a high demand, low support parent because my mom was a high demand, very low support parent. And my dad really just kind of stayed out of parenting completely. Like he was low demand, didn't really demand anything, and was low support, like really didn't show up. And so like I've made some progress by becoming, I kind of grabbed my mom's style of being high demand, and I've worked on becoming more supportive than both of them. But my partner is all support and low demand. And it's driving us crazy because I'm focusing on the limits and the rules and the expectations and the structure. And, she's focusing all on making sure that they feel loved and accepted, but she's not helping me with maybe she's here, not helping me with like the limits and the structure. And so I feel like I'm the bad guy all the time. No wonder we're not feeling on the same page, when really the goal is to get here where you're both high support and high demand. And that also, by the way, has the best outcomes for kids. High support, high demand, but also really warm and loving. Yeah. having a really warm connection. So I did plus warm, plus warm. That's Christine Carter, or was it? No, it was Angela Duckworth, the author of Grit. She called this wise parenting, when you can be high support, high demand, and warm. It's connected to really great outcomes. And so what I would say is that getting on the same page starts with getting really real and really in touch with what your parenting style is and what your partner's parenting style is. What, if any, communication habits and patterns you're stuck in that you could have a breakthrough around. I have Imani Aisha. I'm going to give a little shout out right now. Imani Aisha is a coach that I work with who's also a marriage communication expert, and she is incredible. And she has helped a lot of my clients have breakthroughs around communication with each other. I also have a Discovering Your Shared Values piece that I do from Gottman's work, who's a excellent researcher on what do successful couples do and how do they do it. He's amazing. So yeah, I have a whole exercise that I do with my clients on that. So there's a way forward here. What I would say in the meantime, friends, is to open up a dialogue and just and acknowledge that you need to have you've got to have a weekly kind of come together meeting. You've got to have a weekly come together meeting to talk about your goals for the week, your schedule, what, if any, behavior concerns you have, what, if any, emotional concerns you have. So it's all about weekly meetings. And in my immersion and with my clients, we set up family meetings, and that can be a 20-minute thing or a whole elaborate hour and a half long thing with like a fun activity and affirmations and all kinds of things. It's really up to you, but that would be my hot top tip. Okay, weekly meetings. Yeah, it's a place to start, Kelly. Okay, and all of you who want to have more on the same page feelings with your other caregivers. Now, if the other person's not willing to get on board with weekly meetings, then I charge you to continue doing that master skill or that like high level skill, which is role modeling the behavior that you seek, even for the adults. This I had to do plenty with my interns, friends. I've shaped, over a dozen, almost 20, 25 different educators in their careers with one-on-one mentorship. And what I can tell you is that showing more than telling is the big thing. And what it gives you, which I asked you to guess and nobody did, darn it. But if anybody has a last minute thing, I actually have a little prize for you. A little prize for you if you put it in here. What does modeling the behavior you seek give you at the end of the day, right? So we're going like, you've been modeling, it's 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, you've been modeling things like how to take turns listening and speaking, coming back to Angela's question. You model how to focus on the good things, like maybe your child's character strengths instead of their bad behavior, right? You have modeled motivation strategies, so your child can sit down and go, why am I not motivated right now? Is it because I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Or am I just not finding this interesting? And they can problem solve from there. What do you get out of that? I'll give you guys about 30 more seconds, friends. What do you get out of that at the end of the day? Take a guess. I know because I did it. Montessori education, the number one standard that we need to meet is that we have to walk our talk. If we want the kids to be quiet in the room, we need to be quiet in the room. If we want the kids to walk across the room to talk to someone, we have to do that too. If we want the kids to handle everything with great respect and care, we move slowly and we hold things really carefully and delicately. If we want kids to problem solve constructively, we do that with them or in front of them so they can have an example. Why? What do you get out of that at the end of the day? Just take a guess. Take a guess. I'd love to give you a prize if you guess. I'll pull somebody's name from people who guess. This is so funny, no one wanting to guess. There's no wrong answer here, by the way. It's kind of a trick question in that way. There's more than one good answer. Okay, 5. Give me 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. No one's playing the game. Totally fine. Oh, Oh, dignity at least. Angela played. Yay, Angela. So you got a prize. I'll let you know what it is in a moment. Actually, so you have a 10-year-old. I want to give you this. Let's see. It is, where to go? This one. Yeah. I want to give you this. Celebrate your feelings. This is the Girl's Guide to Navigating Emotional Changes During and Before Puberty. It's for kids 8 years, girls 8 years and up. I'm not affiliated in any way, but I have looked at every single page of this and I approve. It's a really great book for kids 8 and up, girls in this case. So I'll send that to you, Angela. You just need to, I'll message you. And Lee's got it. You get to be potentially successful. The better behavior reward for myself. Yes. Okay, good. Well done, everybody. Yes. Thank you for playing. Appreciate you playing along. So you get to potentially be successful. You get to give them dignity and your own dignity because you didn't stoop to some level that you don't feel good about, right? You continue to, like, what did Michelle Obama say? They go low, we go high. Yeah. And the better behavior reward for yourself, Sarah, like the pride of like, I did that. Like I had better behavior. I didn't stoop to yelling. I didn't stoop to using guilt, right? I didn't stoop to, I didn't get pulled into sort of these dynamics that are, not very helpful or even hurtful. Good. Okay. Collectively, Angela, Lee, and Sarah pretty much got it. That's it. So you get to develop yourself. Like you get to become the better version of you than you would have been if you hadn't had children. Instead of the opposite, which I've heard parents complain about, they miss the person they used to be before they had kids rather than the other way around. Like not saying they'd ever give up their kids, but they kind of miss themselves. And I have another coach who helps us with that in the program, by the way, life coach Crystal Maher. She helps us get back in touch with the parts of ourselves we feel like we left behind. And I work on the part of you that is going to become a better person. Like you are just improved from having been a parent. It's like Life Academy. It's like your life PhD, right? To have to go through this experience that tests your patience, that forces you to be creative, more compassionate, more forgiving, more communicative, more coordinated with the other care providers in your world, right? The other adults, like more sort of empowered around how your emotions, more empowered around how you motivate and be motivated. Yeah. Huge life skills. So people who have mentored with me literally say like they are like different people afterward. And in any way you go about this process, by the way, it doesn't have to do with me. I want you to notice how it develops your character and your skills and your abilities to be a parent. Because when we have the perspective that this is not just more, this is not just a job, it's not just work, this is not just hard times, this is not just trying our patience, whatever. This is an opportunity to become our best selves and to learn and grow alongside our children. Also, they're living in another time than we were when we were little, right? And so like we have the opportunity to sort of like reparent ourselves, knowing what we know now. Yeah. Like I was even in a conversation in another group that's specifically for moms who identify, first of all, as female identified mothers who identify as people of color. But we were talking about how, our parents, our first generation immigrant parents didn't realize that teaching us their second language for some of us was only going to strengthen our intellectual abilities and make us even more valuable to organizations and just be more culturally sort of resourced in the future. They didn't know that then. They really thought that, assimilating as much as possible was the most important thing. And so we lost that, but we don't have to do that with our kids, right? We can take what we know now and we can kind of reparent ourselves while we raise our children. And they're going to need resilience more than ever. So good on you today for joining in a Raising Our Resilience chat. I'm so glad I could support you. If you haven't yet taken the quiz, do it, even just for the own satisfaction of kind of illuminating your strengths and your gaps. I know Sarah got a lot out of it. Jennifer got a lot out of it. And also apply for the session, because if you qualify, we can do some one-on-one and I'd love to support you. The videos are going to be up for the rest of this this next week, and 2 weeks actually. We'll have 2 weeks of the videos being up in the Facebook group, so you can go back into the February and March ones about navigating big emotions. And then I'll be coming every week, and starting in 2 weeks, I'll be back every Monday at 2. In the meantime, though, you might also want to register for our next event. So I'm going to grab that link for you here in a second. And what it is, it's a 2-hour, like more immersive version of learning how to navigate big emotions. We've been doing it in pieces, and I'll be sharing some new information at this webinar. It's on May 8th, which is a Saturday. So usually we're meeting on Mondays, right? This is on a Saturday. And we're going to be in a webinar kind of space where I'll be showing slides. There'll be a handout. And if you register, we'll get you a guide that will give you my 6 favorite ways to get your lid back on in the moment and be able to share that with your kids too. Okay. So let me see if I can't put the link in the chat here in Zoom. I've got you, and then also on Facebook, that you can go ahead and register yourself to this webinar that's coming up in May, and put it on your calendar now. Yeah, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, May 8th. We'll see you there. And in the meantime, come and tune in on Mondays at 2. Check out the videos that are in the group. And last thing I ask, if anything you learned today was valuable, would you consider heading over to the invite button in the group? It's a really easy to do. You just pop over to the page that has the group page. I'll show you what it looks like, and go ahead and click on the little blue invite button and invite some of your friends in while these videos are up. Okay, like today's video, the last videos from February and March. So that way, like, it's just a really generous way to share these resources with people in your life that you care about. And so I really encourage you to do that. I'm pulling it up right now so I can give you a visual of what that might look like on your screen. It might look something like this. Let's see, here you go. Yep, might look something like this, where you can click this invite button right here. And I know that several of you have done this, actually. I know Sarah has done it and other folks, but you can either just put in like people's names like this, you know, someone that comes to mind, someone that you would just love to give some, you know, some of these tips and support. And here's like all my Sarahs. And I would click on the ones that, you know, I would love to invite in, and then you just hit send invites. It's really easy, something like this. Okay, like that. And you can invite them into the Raising Resilience parent group. Okay, really simple. And what a generous thing to do, because here's the place that you can come for free resources, and we can spread the word that way. Because we're doing this together. We're we're flipping the script, friends, on what parenting means. It's an opportunity for us to learn and grow alongside our kids, become the best people we can, and have a chance to, you know, change the course of our family's legacy. Yeah. So I would love for each of you to look back on this time and say, you know what, I did everything I could to empower myself and my kids with great tools and strategies. And now, as you know, they're an adult child, like, we can look back and say, wow, that was an amazing journey. Wasn't always easy, but we got through it together. And I'm so proud of us. And your kid comes to you when they have things that they need help with, because they know that you're there for them. That's the main thing I want, for the love between you and your kids to flow freely, and for them to know that they have a loving, warm, supportive, and demanding someone who really believes in their potential adult in their life. And later, like, you know, a peer, right? A peer, a parent and a peer that they can come to with anything. I believe that when every person in the world has that, like, we've solved so many problems already. All right, so my best to all of you, and we'll see you next time in 2 weeks on Monday at 2. Make sure you catch the videos you haven't watched yet and sign up for the webinar, and we'll see you then. Lots of love to you all. You got this. I believe in you, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.